Breaking tonight, former President Donald Trump asking the federal judge in Washington, D.C. to get off his case and pass it to another federal judge. A short time ago, Trump filed the motion to recuse in the 2020 federal election interference case. The motion reads in part, quote, Judge Chutkan has, in connection with other cases, suggested that President Trump should be prosecuted and imprisoned. Such statements made before the case began and without due process are inherently disqualifying. Although Judge Chutkan may genuinely intend to give President Trump a fair trial and may believe that she can do so, her public statements unavoidably taint these proceedings regardless of outcome, end of quote. Former federal prosecutor, former assistant DA in Cobb County, Georgia, Francey Hakes joins me. Francey, your thought on the motion to recuse by Trump and his lawyers?
Well, it's interesting, Greta. I don't recall hearing before about these statements by the judge in these other proceedings. And they certainly raise what under the federal rules creates the appearance of bias. And that is the reason under the federal rules for recusal of a judge, because the public has a right to have appropriate confidence in judicial proceedings. And if there's the appearance of bias, doesn't even have to be actual bias, just the appearance of bias, then the public can't have confidence in those proceedings and the judge should recuse. But what's interesting about that, Greta, is that is not immediately appealable to the D.C. Circuit. But what is immediately appealable, in a sense, is if the defense, if President Trump's lawyers were upon refusal, because I expect the judge will say, oh, no, I can be fair, then President Trump's lawyers can actually file what's called a petition for writ of mandamus to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And effectively, it's almost like a civil suit where President Trump's lawyers say, the judge made a decision, it's the wrong one, we want you to remove her from the case. And in 2017, the D.C. Circuit held that in the Khalid Sheikh Mohammed case, which on today, 9/11, of course, we all know about, that judge in that case had to recuse because he had made statements that implied he thought Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was guilty, and therefore they removed the judge. So if the D.C. Circuit follows their own rules, they should remove Judge Chutkan.
Just a little trivia. In the 1980s, I used to follow those mandamus all the time on the judges. I was not too popular, saying that they weren't fair. Okay, here's what I think is interesting. I would have been more aggressive in this because I would have rolled into it in terms of bias. It's like, she has issued this trial date requiring that the lawyers read 66,000 pages per day to read all the $12.8 million, 12.8 million documents to prepare for trial. And if that, I mean, that to me is an absolutely insane ruling because nobody can do that. And so you take that. I would have rolled that in. I would have been much more aggressive to show bias towards my client because who does that? What judge does that? So I would have done this. I would have done their motion, but I would have also done that. But they're sort of weak and say, although Judge Chutkan may genuinely intend to give President Trump a fair trial. I mean, that's the weakest statement I ever read in a motion of recusal. That shows that they're scared of the judge. They're not forceful. Well, they're afraid of the judge. I mean, I find this pleading weak by the lawyers. Of course, I was a very aggressive defense attorney.
It is weak, Greta. I mean, it certainly shows that they're worried they're going to lose the motion to recuse, and they don't want to make her so mad that she then really becomes biased against them and rules against them on every ruling. But that's exactly what the D.C. Circuit Court held in the Mohammed case.
I would force the error, sort of like in basketball when they put about 4 people on the person dribbling the ball. I would force the error because I think she is making errors. So I wouldn't treat her with kid gloves. Now, what's going to happen here is the prosecutor is going to come back and defend her and say, oh, no, this is the fairest judge in the whole wide world. So naturally, she's going to love them and not the lawyers for Trump who said, you know, get going because we don't think you can be fair. So they are in a tough spot.
Well, she was never going to love the lawyers for President Trump. She has made statements that suggest a bias, a preconceived notion of Trump's guilt in these matters. And so I think she should recuse herself, but I really think she won't.
Well, I don't think she will either. But the question is how aggressive are Trump's lawyers? Well, I mean, these are, look, you can hate Trump, but constitutional rights actually sort of matter. I mean, it's written there. And he's entitled to a fair trial, no matter who he is, what he's accused of. And the whole idea that she's out making statements like this, and then she has this insane decision that they have to read 66,000 pages per day in discovery. You know, it's just not right. It's not right.
Well, it isn't right, and that's what the D.C. Circuit said in the Mohammed case, Greta. They said that if you wait until after a conviction and an appeal to address the appearance of bias, it's too late because there's no way to go back and discern what decisions were biased and what decisions weren't. And like you said, I think she's already showing that she's biased against President Trump.
Well, you know what I would do, what I would have done when she came out with that trial date and having to read 66,000 pages, that's $12.8 million documents for the trial date. If I were the lawyer, I would have filed a motion to withdraw, saying that she's forced me into an ineffective assistance of counsel position and contrary to the Constitution, that I can't effectively represent the client. No human being can do that. And she would be boxed into changing it. But that's what I would have done. I would have filed a motion to withdraw. Anyway, Francey Hakes, thank you. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Greta.